So you become prime minister. People like Amira El-Gawabi and Deborah Lyons lose their posts?
I think these posts are useless.
We have a mess here in Canada. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David, and today's top story here. We've got Justin Trudeau's GST holiday tax break it's a disaster. So now they've come out just 6 hours before this going into effect today on the 14th. They announced that businesses don't have to participate. This is coming out because Pepsi came out and said they're not going to participate. Now it is a hot mess. Let's jump into this. First off, we got this one here coming from Pepsi saying they're not going to participate because it's just going to mess up their systems. They weren't having it. And see here on the CFIB, Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, it says breaking news. 6 hours before HST GST holiday is set to begin, CFIB confirms with the government that it is not mandatory for businesses to participate. What a joke this is. So a few things to note about this, has a list of all the items and all that. But down here it says how it will work for refunds of items that were GST exempt following the GST holiday. So if businesses don't put this in and you pay for a GST, what you can do is send them into the CRA. And as it notes here, it says within 2 years of having paid the amount of tax, the amount has to be over $2 to get it back. So if you buy a bag of chips and get 60 cents off, you can't get that 60 cents back unless you buy other stuff and it's over $2. This is ridiculous. You would think this would be all over the news right now, but it's not. There's only one broadcast talking about it.
That businesses are not required to put it in place. So it is an option for business owners to offer the savings or not. And we're hearing from some companies that are not planning to do this, including large businesses. PepsiCo Frito-Lay has said that they're not going to pass on the GST or HST reductions to suppliers like convenience stores and grocery stores. So that puts additional cash flow pressure on those businesses. Apparently, that's okay.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, just to make sure I understand through the supply chain how this would work. Wouldn't the businesses or ultimately if the supplier is ultimately not going to be providing the tax relief there, can the business not ultimately then claim that later on and get the money back, similar to how if you go on holiday and you're in a foreign country, you don't want to pay their taxes, so you would ask for reimbursement later?
Yes. So just yesterday, the government confirmed that, in fact, no business, whether it's a manufacturer, wholesaler, or even a retailer, is required to participate in the GST HST holiday. If they don't, then the consumer, the business, or even the final end consumer can go back to the Canada Revenue Agency and request a refund. How practical that is on the ground is anyone's guess. But we just learned that last night. That no retailer, no manufacturer is required to participate in the GST HST holiday. Look, most businesses will, especially at the retail and restaurant level, simply because they don't want to lose the customer to the guy down the street. If you're not offering, in Ontario's case, a 13% reduction because of the HST holiday, that could motivate somebody to leave your toy store, your gift shop, or the grocery store and just go down the street.
This is horribly unfair. So in British Columbia, where I'm at, the PST is not getting taken off. So like David Eby has chosen to once again not do anything for the people. Yet you've got Ontario where they're taking off the HST as well. It's a huge difference in tax here.
Well, we did hear from Minister Rishi Valdez today, and what she was saying is that ultimately the CRA is not going to be spending a lot of time focusing on small businesses and whether or not they're complying. However, she did say that would be under the expectation that they would be participating, right, and that they're in good faith ultimately trying to follow these rules for the 2 months as they're written as best as possible. But essentially, she didn't say that this is not going to be enforced directly. She also didn't say that this was optional. So what do you think about how the government and the Minister for Small Business is talking about this now?
Well, that's typical from politicians. This is not mandatory, but they want to make it look like it is, and so that's the challenge right now. Is they, of course, want everyone to participate. Otherwise, this is going to look very foolish on the part of the government to put in place this last-minute holiday. But that's the rub of it. The fact that we're even having this conversation says that the government has absolutely butchered the communications around this. This was a last-minute tax change with massive implementation implementation costs for small businesses. Tons of them stayed up late because they had to change their computer systems, their point of sale systems last night to put this in place because they couldn't do it earlier as they as they had to charge the GST or HST before that. It's been a complete mess with huge compliance costs, and I'm hoping that today goes a little bit smoother.
Just imagine all the businesses that had to, like you said, stay up late and do that, and then they find out they don't have to. Like, what a joke. So CFIB also did a survey here. You can see 75% say it would cost more and complicate the system for the holidays here. 65% of businesses said there's not enough time to implement the change. 71% say big businesses and online giants would have the upper hand. 68% said it will be more difficult to determine which items are temporary tax exempt, and 66% of retailers say that consumers will delay their purchases to try to take advantage of this. But now it's temporary. This is so goofy. Something else to consider here is someone in the government is going to have to check these now. So this is going to cost us more money because, like, this is so dumb. They're costing us more money from this GST holiday. They would have been better off just not doing it. Now, amidst this GST holiday disaster, we've got this fool here, Jenna Suds, bragging about all the things that'll be part of the program.
Come with me shopping in Canada to see some of the items that are part of the GST, HST tax break. This is included. This is included. These are included. All this?
This is so cringe, and these aren't necessarily included. Well, unless you file them yourself with the CRA. Who wants to keep the receipts and file a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there? Like, what a hassle.
Part of the tax break. All of these are included. Included. This is also part of the tax break. Takeout and baked goods are part of the tax break, but don't forget to support local.
I think she needs to take her own advice. You guys should support local. On this episode of Far Off Ripoff, we have the Great Green Wall in Senegal. $25 million of our tax dollars spent on the project aims to strengthen the resilience of ecosystems and vulnerable populations, especially women and youth, to climate change in regions bordering the Great Green Wall in Senegal. It does this through reforestation, natural-based solutions, climate-resilient agriculture, and inclusive climate governance. Not exclusive, definitely inclusive. What exactly is the Great Green Wall, you might ask? It's this band here, so this is where it turns from desert to forest jungle. This is what our money's going to, $25 million in Senegal. You can see here an example. So here's a perfect example of the Great Green Wall, this one. And more specifically here, we're looking at Africa, right at the edge of Africa, the Great Green Wall, right here, Senegal. So you can see here, they don't have a lot of it, but mostly this section right here. So we're going to spend 25 million of our tax dollars to add some trees to this area. Really? When we got people sleeping on our streets, this is where our money's going. Next up, we have another former Liberal MP endorsing Pierre Poilievre. This is Hamilton Mayor Bob Bratina, endorses Pierre and Ned Currick for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
Former Mayor of Hamilton, former MP of Hamilton East Stony Creek, former downtown councillor, Bob Bratina. So Bob, you've been gracious enough to come and knock on doors with us many, many times. You've been out with us the whole summer, pretty much during the whole journey. You've endorsed me.
Yeah.
We've knocked on a lot of doors together.
Yeah.
What are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing that people have a common issue, which is the cost of living for older people, what's in store for their families, for their kids in terms of living in the basement, never having an opportunity to buy a home. And so much of this is based on my observation when I was part of the government of the direction that they're taking. And the cost of living is out of control, and it has to stop. And I think that the things that are on the back of your card, which is axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime, really speaks to the issues that I hear at the door. People are more concerned about their security. How are we going to get a house for our kids? The budget, the money, spending money like crazy.
Yeah.
And part of it is because of the carbon tax, which is not going to solve any climate problem.
But one thing's for certain, it's costing Canadians a lot of money.
It is coming from a Liberal here. The carbon tax is not going to solve any climate problem. It's hilarious. Just another Liberal supporting Pierre Poilievre. It's time to start talking about immigration. The topic is neck and neck with carbon tax. If Conservatives aren't going to address it or do anything about it, that's a voting problem. Now, Pierre Poilievre has talked about this. He's going to make it in line with what we can absorb. He's basically saying he's going to drop it dramatically because we can't absorb these huge numbers. That's at least 3 former Liberal MPs joining the Conservatives never vote Liberal again. So here's another clip from this Halifax Chamber of Commerce. The reason why I'm only putting in sporadic clips because this is 54 minutes and there's so much craziness in here. That's why I've been peppering this throughout the last few videos. But listen to this one about the carbon tax. They're talking about the election that was in Nova Scotia and how the Liberals didn't do well and how it's related to the carbon tax.
So I'm just wondering, given that the Liberal Party didn't do very well in Nova Scotia in the most recent election, what does that tell you about the current voter thinking about the carbon tax?
It says a lot about the disconnect between what people perceive of as good policy versus what they perceive of as good politics. There are lots of things out there that seem very, very popular to do politically, and people are falling over themselves to try and do them. And we only need to look south of the border to know that very popular policy is sometimes not very good policy.
This guy's taking every opportunity to insult Trump. He is so stupid. Just work with the guy. Strengthen the borders. Avoid the tariffs. What is this idiot doing to our country?
We know, I mean, we're here for some of the extreme weather events, whether it's fires or more intense hurricanes that you've had over the past few years.
The ones started by arson? Are we talking about those fires?
We know that there is an absolute unavoidable cost around climate change.
The only unavoidable cost is Justin Trudeau and the detriment you cause to our economy and our country. Next up, we got a podcast here with Pierre Poilievre on, and he just absolutely tears into Justin Trudeau's wasteful spending.
You know what Montreal Liberals tell me? They're not leaving the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party has left them. And I'm here to say, with my arms wide open, welcome.
So on that front, and I want to talk about the protests, what we've seen for now over a year in this city. Liberal government, they can make the argument, well, we've never invested more. They pay for a special representative on Islamophobia. They pay for a special representative against anti-Semitism, right?
What has that done? Have these special representatives been out in the street shutting down these riots? What? Nope. Every time there's a problem, Justin Trudeau creates a new bureaucracy. It creates a new high-paid position for someone with a corner office making $250,000 of taxpayers' money, and the problem gets worse. Spending more money on these problems is not the solution.
So you become prime minister. People like Amira El-Gawabi and Deborah Lyons lose their posts?
I think these posts are useless, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think they do anything. And I also think we have to stop dividing people by race, ethnicity, religion. I think all racism is bad. I'm against every form of racism. And I also think we should treat people like individuals. And let's get back to Martin Luther King. Judge people by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. There's never been more racism and racial tension than now after 9 years of Trudeau. 250% increase in police-reported hate crimes under Justin Trudeau. Why? Well, one, he allows the criminals out on the street. Two, this toxic wokeism deliberately divides our people into different racial segments and then turns them at war against each other. By the way, we're seeing it happen now in the Liberal Party, where Jewish Liberal MPs are now fighting with Muslim Liberal MPs, where Hindu Liberal MPs are fighting with Sikh Liberal MPs. We didn't have these problems before. When my wife came here as a refugee to Montreal, decades ago, she understood her problems from Venezuela were left at the door. She got to be a Canadian. She was handed a Canadian flag and said, congratulations, you're part of the greatest country on earth. Your neighbor, regardless of whether he was on a different political side back in South America, he's now a fellow Canadian and he's your friend. That's how it was. That's how I want it to be. Let's put Canada first. Let's unite our people again.
Yeah, that's a great message. That's what we need. We don't need Justin Trudeau's broke, woke garbage. And it's funny, Pierre mentions the battles between the Liberals. This was like quite literally this week. The two of them, one guy saying he was going to beat him up, two guys from India fighting in the House of Commons in Canada about their home country, their religion. I don't like the protesters. I hate what the government did to the convoy protesters. That said, Palestinian protests haven't looted, started fires, or assaulted people on a regular basis. I don't want to trade freedom for comfort. They have, though. There's multiple clips of them shattering windows, breaking into places. They've started fires. They don't do looting, but they do a lot of destruction, a lot of spray painting, a lot of destroying property. Next up, we got Daniel Smith making an announcement here. $70 billion. This is proposed data center mega project is set to be the largest investment in Alberta's history and the largest investment of its kind in the world.
Come together in perfect harmony, where the future will pulse at every turn.
Okay, so we'll mute that for a second, but it says project led by Kevin O'Leary coming to Wonder Valley, located in municipal district of Greenview. Looks fancy. So Kevin O'Leary, I guess he's kind of starting to get on board here because he knows Trudeau's going to be out the door and he wants to kind of jump at this. Just be a savvy businessman while he knows there's going to be some opportunities. There you have it. Another failure by Justin Trudeau. They've rolled out this plan too fast. It's now optional if you want to opt into it. And if you don't, then Canadians have to send it in ourselves because that's a real hassle. And that's what Justin Trudeau wants, just to make our life more miserable. All these stupid little things. We would have been much better off without Justin Trudeau's tax holiday.